Good morning and welcome to our monthly Business Builder Speaker Series. My name is Doug Dean. I'm the owner and managing partner of Fritz and Dean today. And I'll introduce our guest in just a moment. The Business Builder Speaker Series was an idea invented out of the COVID days when we couldn't get together in person. We said, let's get together once a month virtually. We'll bring a speaker on with a topic that we think's important and valuable to our real estate agent community. Great tips and tricks from industry professionals to help you grow your real estate business. And again, the Business Builder is the third Wednesday every month at 10 a.m. on Zoom. While it isn't for CE credit, it is good information. We know that you're busy and we appreciate you joining us and giving us your time. To make the most of your time, we encourage you to ask questions. You can participate by utilizing the chat box, and I'll monitor the chat for our speaker today. Also, it's a small group, so feel free to just unmute yourself and ask a question if you'd like. We encourage you to stay connected with us. We've got all the major socials listed here. Additionally, we record our Business Builder Speaker Series, and they are available on our website, shafritz-dean.com. Under the Resource tab, you'll find a link to all of our prior Business Builder Speaker Series videos. And I believe our library now is over 50 videos covering all kinds of different topics. And to stay informed, register on our website so that you'll get all the updated information about upcoming Business Builder Speaker Series. Year to date, we had Alan Richardson in January who talked about market analysis for 2026. I hosted in February with a quick summary overview of the 2026 GAR form changes. And go ahead and mark your calendar. The third Wednesday next month will be April 15th, Tax Day at 10 a.m. And we encourage you to join us next month. Our topic next month will be fair housing and what it means to you. We'll announce a speaker once we've got the speaker identified and laid out. This month, I'm proud to introduce Esse Celender, a realtor with first-class real estate, psychology of the close, using the DISC profile for top-producing realtors. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Esse. Esse, I'm going to stop the share so that you can go ahead and share your presentation.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see?
I can. Thank you, Esse.
Perfect. So what we're going to start by talking about today is the psychology of the close and the DISC system for top producing agents. So as Doug said, if you have any questions, please unmute and just feel free to ask or use the chat features. We're excited to discuss this with you. We're going to talk a little bit about what DISC is, how the behavioral styles impact your clients, how those interactions are impacting your communications, and how it also helps you win those deals. I've been in the business of real estate for about 14 years. I joined in 2012. And since then, I've seen lots of things and also become the broker over with First Class Real Estate Linear Group. It's a fantastic place, and I've truly enjoyed all the opportunities and growth. It's one of the fantastic reasons I met Doug. So any questions there, let me know as well. Now, one of the things that we all talk about is that anytime you work with a client, there are some clients that feel very easy to work with. The conversations are smooth, it's effortless. And then there are clients that it's almost like it's impossible. It's almost like pulling teeth. It may be the same process, it may be the same market, it's the same you, but the outcomes are different. And what we found is that's the difference isn't always skill, it's psychology. Real estate, we treat it as a business in the sense of it's selling land, it's selling a home, it's selling a commercial building. But real estate, it's really a people business, not a sales business. And let me move this. My apologies. My screen moved on me, guys. Okay. So part of it is in we don't get paid to just open doors. We get paid to understand people. And DISC is one of the simplest ways to do that in real estate. Okay. It helps you adapt, overcome, and improve communications and outcomes. Now, DISC is a personality and behavior model that originated in the 1920s. William Moulton Marston is an American psychologist. He came up with the book and first wrote about the DISC and behavior types in Emotions of Normal People. It was published in 1928. Fun facts, a couple of things. Him and his wife are also the first creators of the polygraph test. So they worked very hard to understand the psychology of people and individuals. Also, another fun thing just about William Marston is he's also the creator of the comic book character Wonder Woman. So, for everyone who may not know him for the polygraph or for DISC personalities, almost everyone knows the history of or has heard of Wonder Woman. So, it's a fun little piece of facts there as well. Now, one of the things that Marston really studied wasn't just psychology in the sense of your personality, and those pieces are ingrained deep into you. What he did notice was that behavior, and where that DISC personality comes into play is that behaviors are adaptable. So those are the things that can be changed and measured. So it helps you make those decisions on how to communicate. Best part about that is when you use these things, you can use them in real time in conversations and in negotiations. Okay. So, what does that mean to us? Because it can be adjusted, it means that you can use this whenever talking to someone at any time. Now, DISC personality at a glance talks about two main things. It's how people adjust and react to things, either in a very quick and fast responses, or a slower and more steady responses. And then also breaks down into two other options, which are either task focused individuals or people focused individuals. And those two breakdowns came up with four styles: DISC. D for that dominant, they're the drivers. I for an influential, they're the people that are going to be more people oriented but make quick choices. S, it's all about stability. They're people oriented, but they're looking for that reassurance. And C is where we say conscientious. Original, he wrote compliant, but it's more of a conscientious thought. They're the ones who need that data and fact. They make choices based off of logic and they're more methodical. Now, no one is just one type specifically. We're mostly all a blend, but a lot of us have a predominant type in how we interact with others. D being that dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientious. Now, D is the dominance. It's the first one. These are the drivers. They're fast paced, they're direct, they're result oriented. I'm sure a lot of you have had a client where at one point or another, they talk to you and they say, I don't need the fluff. I don't need the extra. Give me the meat and potatoes. Instead of taking them, you take them out and you start with 10 houses. But say after the third or fourth showing, you realize, oh my gosh, like all that energy has dropped. At that point, really, they want you to show the best of the best. They're relying on you to do your job and to be the expert in that field. So when they come to you, they're going to look to you and expect you to be better than them. So they're going to make decisions quickly based off of your experience and your expertise. Now, a lot of ways to identify these individuals. Sometimes they're going to say things like, what's the bottom line? What do you recommend? What are things like the ROI? They're going to look for those quick, solid answers. Be direct, be efficient with these individuals. That's how you're going to best communicate with them. They're also going to always be focused more on the results. They want to know what the end is, how quickly something can be done, how efficiently it can be done, how far, how much, and what do you need from them to get from point A to point B without all of the extras. A lot of times they may be the ones who say, show me the best options. What are the best three? And I, as someone who's the influencer, they're going to probably be your social butterfly. They're more social, they're expressive. A lot of times they're buying off of emotion, not just off of what seems the best or what's most logical. They're going to be the people that when you walk in, they're the ones who've said, I love this house. One of my favorite showings I've ever had is a client who we walked through multiple different properties, and you could see on her face, she walked in and she'd frown and she'd be like, no. And then she walked in and she's like, yes, I like this. And she may start decorating. But her home was the one we walked into. And then she's singing and dancing as we're walking through that kitchen. She's already placed herself in it. She's already decorated. She's actually planning their barbecue for like 3 weeks from that, or like 3 months from then. That's the individual who's that going to be that eye and that influence. They're based off of building that connection. They want to connect to people. The best way to handle those clients is to match their energy, make it enjoyable. These are individuals that are going to literally pick things potentially quickly, but off of emotional reactions and responses. Your S stands for that steadiness. Steadiness is not just no rocking the water. What they're looking for is they're looking for someone to sit down and explain things to them. Steadiness isn't just steady, it's security. So these individuals tend to be a little more calm, a little more patient. They're extremely loyal in the behaviors. So with that in mind, what you're thinking about is a lot of times they're a little more soft spoken. They're going to ask about the long term impacts. They're going to ask and they're going to be looking to avoid pressure. Okay. They may take longer to decide, but when they do, their decisions are solid. They feel good about them. These clients, a lot of times, are the ones that you may hear them say, I want to make the right decision. I'm not sure if it is, but I just want to make the right one. A lot of these clients are also the ones that are going to say, I want to talk about it over dinner, or let me get back to you. They're not always like your D or your I, which is a traditionally fast paced individual. Your S client is someone who probably is going to say, let me sleep on it. They want to feel secure in their decisions. They need that time to mull it over. A lot of times with this, one of the ways to help clients is talk to them about that, prepare them in advance, and then say, you know what, go to dinner, enjoy that meal, let's chat afterwards, or get a good night rest, and we'll talk in the morning. They're clients that want to avoid pressure. Pressure tends to push them away. They're also looking for a reassurance. I'm sure those that have been in the business for years, Doug, I'm sure has heard some of the stories, but there are clients that if you end up in a multiple offer situation, some of that competitiveness, some clients are accepting of, and they're willing to work and they're willing to throw their hat in the rings. But we've all had a client who, when you hear that multiple offer situation in real estate, and they say, no, no, I'm walking away. They don't want to be in that pressure situation. They don't want to be under those constraints. So these kind of clients are looking to avoid that. They're going to need more time and a little bit more step-by-step instruction just to make sure that they feel good about the process too. C stands for that conscientious client. Okay. They're going to be the ones who are analytical. They want data, accuracy, logic. They're not always excited about the home. What they're doing is they're evaluating it. So when you wander through or you talk to them, they're going to be the clients that ask detailed questions. They want documentation. They are slower to commit because it's not just about that emotional connection for them. They're looking at it in a methodical light. They're looking at it if it makes sense. So you may hear them say, can you send me the data? And in real estate, that may be something as simple as saying, can you send me the home inspection report or the comparables? If you're looking at land, maybe they're asking for the covenants and restrictions, that perk test. These are things that a lot of times they want to see prior to even making the offer or moving forward and committing, because they need the big picture. In real estate, a lot of times you'll see clients, and a great way to identify these clients are the ones that are going to read everything. They're the client that wants to read your contract from cover to cover. They want to read all of the HOA documents. They want all the knowledge so they feel that their choice isn't just an emotional one, but it's stacked with research and fact. Now, DISC isn't just about the clients. A lot of DISC is about ourselves. So your strengths are your natural style, and your struggles traditionally are the flip side. So a lot of different personalities work in real estate, and a lot of those different personalities are going to be your clients. Now, a D personality in real estate, a lot of times they're quick to action, but also they're impatient. So you may, if you're a D personality, maybe you immediately call, and when someone says they're interested, you're quick to the gun. But the moment something gets put in pause, a lot of times those clients get forgotten or just moved on to. They're charismatic. They're the chatty ones. They're going to talk to you. They're social and friendly with everyone. But a lot of times their consistency and their follow up is not always the thing. So those fixes will be fixed by systems. S, traditionally, they're very steady and secure in their caring, but they avoid conflict. So, to help with that, to counter that, you're going to want to practice your harder conversations, work on objection handling, and see they're smart. They know their stuff. They've researched all the bits, but a lot of times they're overthinkers or that they get busy being busy instead of actually continuing that conversation or working out. They don't need to overthink. What you need to do is also take some action with the knowledge that you've learned. Now, where does it help you and where does it hurt you? That's kind of what we were just discussing. Those personality types also reflect in how you handle your clients. And in this, on the screen right now, you guys can see I've got some of the different things that they talk about, like a D personality, straightforward, forceful, daring, determined, assertive, and violent. I also have here in the corner, just so you guys can use as an example, my own chart as well for DISC. I'm a very D personality followed by that I. I like to do things quickly. I'm very jump to it, but I'm also the one who's like, ooh, shiny and likes those socializations. So I have to counter those for the clients that aren't built just like me. I had to slow down for someone who needs that sense of security and reassure them. They're not going to be the same as I am when they walk in a home. I may walk in a house and know it checks every box for them, but they may need that time to wander through and see it. Or I work with clients who are very C type oriented and I'm not. So I have to be prepared in advance and make sure I've researched the things they need, have the information they want to be able to access so they can see it. And a lot of times I do that in advance for those clients, knowing that that's not my natural style. Where does it apply to real estate? So one of the great parts about real estate is that this applies to not just that client conversation and just identifying, but you can use it in every aspect. So for example, showings. And we're going to talk a little bit about each kind of different group. With a D client, like if you're walking in, they've got that driver and disciplined personality. They're very quick to make judgments. I'm sure you've all walked into a house and the client literally is like, not me, or pulled up and you haven't even had to walk in. They just are like, no, thank you. And a lot of times that's because they know what they'd like. They don't need you to over explain things. They need you to make sure that you've got all the information and you express it concisely. Their time is valuable to them. So they're not going to want to just dilly dally from place to place. They want you to go through all the pieces. Does this check the box? What's the ROI? This may be a client who says to you, this won't be my forever home, but this works for the next 2 years, because they're looking at that bigger picture and they're looking at the long term of it. So they're looking at that now and they're quick to those decisions. These individuals can make a decision same day standing in that property. Now, an I client, someone who is that influencer and that social butterfly, a lot of these showings last longer. And part of it's because they want to have those conversations. They want to talk to you about it. And they may want to just decorate. And they may do that with every house. They're going to decide, does their couch fit? They're going to decide, can they live in the kitchen with their friends and family? And it's not just about the floor plan, but it's about the emotional connection they have. So they're going to be the ones who have decided that, oh, yes, this is where they can build those memories. And those are the things you talk about in a showing with an I client. You want to connect with them on an emotional level. They're looking not just to buy a home, but to buy where they build their dreams, their hopes, their wants, their future. So that's the kind of thing that you direct an I type buyer to. They're looking not just in how quickly they can move forward. Does this hit all the boxes? They're looking for that emotional connection. These things are done through building rapport, having those conversations, laughing, joking, telling stories. That's how you're going to build those connections with an I buyer. Now, they both make decisions quickly. An I buyer, a lot of times, are the ones, again, they're going to love the house, want to move forward. Now, we've all seen couples where someone's like, yes, I want to put an offer in. And then the other side of the coin, they're like, no, no, let's talk about it. And a lot of times, those individuals that want to talk about it or need more time to think, again, are on the opposite side of the spectrums for the disc personality types. You're talking about an S, someone who's more steady, or C, that conscientious type. An S personality type, they're going to need more reassurance. So as you walk through those properties, they're going to want to understand, like, how does this affect them? What does this give them long-term safety? A lot of times when I talk to these clients, it's not just about the home being the right home. It's about them finding out, what does it mean for them? It's a sanctuary to them. As clients, a lot of times are also very family oriented, whether it's talking to their extended family or what they're planning for with their current family or future family. Their thoughts are not just for themselves and their own love of it, they're planning for others. They're caring about others. And that could be, does this work for their children? Is the home great for their significant other? The idea is that they're looking at it in the sense of making sure that it reassures not just their dreams and hopes, but also everyone that they spend their days with. So they're going to need someone to take them through that step-by-step process. They're going to need someone who reassures them that the decision is good. A lot of times, I'm sure a lot of us have had those phone calls where you have a client who just calls you after they've made the offer and they're like, oh, I'm so not sure anymore. And it's still the house they love, but they talk to someone and they're just now second guessing themselves. So these clients need that reassurance. The decision process is theirs to make. But once they make that, a lot of times they're very, very solidly involved, solidly saying, yes, this is what I want to do and move forward with, because they've thought about it. They've seen how it fits their family. It's seen how it applies to their everyday lives. They're the clients that as you walk through those homes, they're going to most likely say, yes, I need some time to think about it. Or they're the ones who are going to be talking about, is this the right home for me? They normally want to see more than one to make sure, one, they haven't missed something, but two, that they're making the best decision for themselves and their family units. And then a C-type client, they also do not traditionally make a decision right there standing in that property. A lot of times what they do is they put their top one or two at the list, and then they're going to ask for the data. They're going to ask for the information that's the extra. They're going to say, I like property A and I like property B. At this point, what I need is the comparables. Where does this fit? Does this price match what's sold? They're going to ask if you have an inspection report yet. Now, as a buyer, if you're working with a buyer, you probably don't yet. So that's part of that due diligence time frame. But they're going to ask for any information you can get. Is that the HOA documents, like the covenants and conditions and restrictions? If it's land, is it a soil or perk test that's already been done? Or is it zoning requirements from the county? Those questions they're going to ask, and they're going to want information and knowledge about, and the ability to review it a lot of times before they make that final decision, before they check that box and say, yes, this is the home I want to move forward with. A lot of ways to handle those clients and to be able to help them move forward is be preemptive. If you've looked at it and you've talked to them, you know what probably is going to be those top two. Reach out in advance and get to those documents. Reach out in advance and find out if there's any disclosures that can be given to those buyers, someone who may need that information. This will help prep them for those decisions. And if you have it in advance, send it. Send it prior to your showings. Send it prior to your meeting. They're going to want to read all of those things, and then you should take a chance at time and read them too. Make sure that you can answer their questions because they'll probably have some. Now, real estate and the disc profiles don't just help apply to your clients. One of the great things about it is they also can apply to the other side, to the co-op agent that you're speaking with. So you're not just negotiating a contract when you're working with your buyers and sellers. You're negotiating with a person, and that person is the agent on the other side. So we want to make sure that when you communicate with them, if you want, and I recommend it, you have the ability to adapt with their styles as well to make sure that you mesh and that you guys can get to that win-win. A D-type agent, someone with that personality, they're direct, they're fast. They need concise information. If you get them on the phone, it's a short and sweet conversation. Move on to the next. You get an I-type agent on the phone, they're more chatty. This is the person that you build rapport with to help build that deal. This is the person that's going to want to talk to you. They're going to want to know a little bit about your clients. They want to know about you. They want to make sure that who they're choosing to work with on the other side can answer the phone and is social and has the ability to get to the close table as well. Now, an S-type agent, a lot of times they themselves need that same security that those clients need. So they don't rush always. The follow-up, make sure it's always in a kind manner. Something direct and blunt may not be perceived or received well by them. So you want to make sure that those communications is something where that it's where that they both are, it's receptive as well as probably not as intense. And then a C-type agent, they're going to again be very accurate. These agents, they know if you've missed a spot on the contract, and they're going to want those things corrected. So these are people that you're going to want to take and make sure you've done your due diligence with as well. Make sure that you filled out your contracts. Make sure that your information and timelines are all accurate on them. These people know their properties and know their clients. So they're going to be great to work with, but they're going to also be detail oriented and detail focused. Deals don't always fall apart over numbers, y'all. They fall apart over potential miscommunications and emotions. And it's not just your client's emotions, it's also those agents that you work with. We do not need more leads all the time. So a lot of times what we need are just better communication. So one of the few things that we're discussing as well is those communication styles and those ability to connect with others. Now, I'm sure we all have some, if anyone has any questions, please do let me know as well as we've gone through this. So talking about agents, and one of the things I want to communicate with there as well is that this job does not rely on you solely. Real estate, again, is such a people business. So when I have a couple examples I'd like to tell you about. So I've worked some deals and had some potentials where things may have gotten a little hot-headed and things like that. One of the best ways to do and the best ways to move forward with those things is to take a step back and figure out how you're communicating and how the other agent is communicating. So I've dealt with a client and an agent where we were both we had different views on how some repairs need to be done during that due diligence timeframe. When we took a step back, I realized that the other side and that other agent, what they're looking for are just extreme specifics. They wanted to know exactly who's doing what, when it's going to be completed. And those types of behaviors are a C-type personality, which I'm not from the get. So when we decided to, and after we had those conversations, we came back to them with the exact needs that my client had, not just a generalized, hey, we want X, Y, and Z done. We said, we need this done by this time. We need this done by this time by this person. And their client agreed to those terms, but it's because the agent understood it in a way that made sense to them. So communication makes a huge difference in how we get from point A to point B with our deals. Okay? The point of this is not to change who you are. It's really just to change, like, to manage it. Think about it that way. We're not looking to change how we talk, how we interact. We're just trying to understand that there's another person on the other side of that deal. Okay. Think about it that way. Negotiations aren't about pressure. They're always about alignment. And that's the goal. Everything in this business is a goals to be in a win-win scenario, to get to the closing table as an agent, as a broker, even as a client. Their goal is to get to that closing table. So it's not always about who's winning in that moment. It's about how can we align everyone's needs and wants to get to a win. Okay. Agent who adapts the fastest wins more deals. Okay. This doesn't mean overpowering someone. It means communicating in a way that it makes it easy for those people to say yes to you. Whether it's emotionally connecting and telling a story, and that buyer sees the home and then loves it, whether it's the S personality who says, I need to think about it, or I want to make sure I'm making the best decision. And then you help lay out the pieces very gently, where they can see that those pieces fit like a puzzle and say, yes, this works for my long-term wants and goals. Yes, this looks like the sanctuary I'm interested in. This answers and checks all the boxes to what I'm looking for. We've all had clients that we need to discuss things with in different ways. And it's adapting to them to make sure that they understand where we're trying to go, where we're leading. You are the expert in your field. It's just being able to convey that expertise to your clients and to the co-op agent on the other side that we're all aiming for. Okay. Any questions real quick before I continue? None? It's okay. One of the other things I want to talk about is some of the places that you can actually take this DISC personality test. There's a couple options if anyone is interested. Tony Robbins has his own site, and there's also 123test.com. Both of those places actually have a DISC personality assessment that you can take that will help you understand and break down some of those pieces. Now, does anyone have an idea of what kind of personality they are? Anyone want to share?
I'll go with multiple. I'm a multiple personality.
Which one do you think you are, Stephanie?
Multiple, honey. I think I'm a little bit of all of them. But what I appreciate about this is that even even if you're not religious, a lot of people respect the Bible. But Paul said that we should become all things to all people, and it's just about finding common ground and effectively communicating. I didn't understand that at first. I thought it was manipulation. I thought it was tricky. It's really more respect.
Very much so. One of the big things about these type of styles is, and this is just one of the personality styles, everyone, I'm sure you guys have heard, or one of the behavioral style breakdowns and tests that they use to measure. I know others have heard of like Myers-Briggs personality tests and things like this, but this is just one way to identify and help identify your clients and the individuals you work with. And we're all kind of a blend of everything. It's just what happens, and these behaviors are more about what happens when you're under stress. How will you react to those kind of things? And being able to identify them gives you a way to help communicate with those individuals. Some examples of it as well are things like when you're talking to a D-type personality, they're going to probably be the person that interrupts you, or they may challenge you. There are people that like to debate a lot of the times, and once they have that information, they're ready to move on. They don't need you to go over it more than once. Your social butterflies, that I personality, they're the ones who thrive in big groups. They're the ones who probably have brought their friends to go look at the houses with them or taken video while they're there with them. They're the ones that also may love house A, and then they love house B and C, and then they walk in and D is really the one they fall in love with and want to buy. They tend to build off of those emotions and that energy. So if you don't match it and your energy is a little more low key, it may be something that they don't find that same love because they're looking for it from you. They're looking to match that with you. An S personality as well. They're going to be someone who's much more, as we talked about, being calmer. They're going to need more step by step directions. It's not that you, if you're an I personality, can't assist them because you will be probably the higher energy of it. What it means is just coming down to match them, taking a step back and breaking the pieces into chunks where they can understand it. Real estate is the most stressful thing we do in our lives in a lot of ways. It's the largest purchase of most of our lives. On that note, everyone everywhere is going to be paying for something. You either pay a landlord to live in it or you buy it for yourself to build that equity. So everyone needs that home. So it's just about you helping to solve their needs in a way that makes them feel secure and good about the process. Same with that C personality. They're the ones who, when you're dealing with them, again, they're going to want evidence. It's not about an emotional reaction like your I type was, who's very high and socially excited and chatty. What they're looking for is fact, evidence, research, knowledge. They're not going to trust their emotions. They're going to trust the information. And this is one of those things that says just how to help them, how to make sure that you do better and we all do better when we're communicating with those. Same with those agents. This is the kind of communication that makes a difference in bettering those pieces and getting to the close table smoothly. If you are in this business long enough, any business long enough, you don't tend to just work with one person and move on and never see them again. You're going to work with so many people and then work with them again potentially. And to do so, you have to know how to communicate with them. So you have a great experience the first time and then an even better one the second, because you'll know who they are and you'll also know who you are. So this is a great option for that. Anyone else have an idea of what kind of personality they are?
So in work, I'm different than what I am in my personal life. Naturally, in my personal life, I'm a DI, but in my work life, I'm a CS.
Okay. Okay. And a lot of people see that. There's a lot of discussions, and a lot of major corporations use the DISC profile to kind of identify those workplace relationships. And it sounds like outside of work, you look at life a little more open, a little more fun, a little more spontaneous. But in work, you're very detailed and very oriented towards making sure things are correct. That CS personality takes accuracy and makes that a prerequisite to their jobs, which is a huge deal in real estate, everyone. Those are fantastic people. A lot of individuals that do that also are great transaction coordinators. And that's something I look for in a transaction coordinator, someone who has that detailed focus for things that I may miss. And that's a great way to partner or work with someone. Make sure you know what your faults are and where your struggles are so you have great people and put people around you that also counter them. So it's great that you know both of them, that one's a more social and the other's a more stressful under work environments.
Esse, you mentioned corporate use of DISC profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Before I became a real estate attorney, I was an engineer at Delta Airlines for 14 years, and each new employee took a DISC profile and they printed a decal that we stuck on our ID. What's interesting is, we talk about which one is dominant, but it had all four on a graph and it was color coded. So if they were a D, their graph was red colored, but you could see their relative DISC strengths. And a lot of the folks I worked with were ex-military and they were all Ds. They were all red. You'd see it on their ID. And I'm more of an SC. I'm more of a steady, conscientious, data-driven guy. So I learned quickly when I saw a red badge, I need to cut through and get to the bottom line quickly. This is the issue, and this is what we're doing, and not give them all what I would want, which was all the detail and background and all the facts. It was interesting because all employees had a little color-coded sticker, and you could see their relative strengths among them. And even though most everyone has one that leads, it's not that it leads to the exclusion of all the others. They might be a high D, but they also have a C or an S component to them. So learning not only which one is primary, but sort of what's the secondary driver to them.
Definitely. And I pulled back up the slide that talks about styles. This has my personality profile test assessment on here as well. I'm a very high DI. And then under stressors, and interestingly enough, a lot of the I disappears. I do not have a lot of S or C in me. So I've had to learn to counter those things. I love that they put it on the badges, though. It gives you an opportunity to kind of know how to approach someone. And unfortunately, we don't wear those. So it's not like you learn that from just talking or seeing someone with a badge on the street. But those are where those conversations come into play. And how does someone talk to you to know? And as you said, a lot of military are very D personalities. A lot of them are. They have a lot of very direct, get to the point. They expect you to know your field and to be the expert in it. So that's a lot of how they work. Unlike, as you said, kind of yourself, that SNC, who's probably looking for more of the analytics, who's more data driven, who wants to actually take the time to go through those pieces before maybe automatically jumping to the next decision. So learning how those people interact is a big deal. And a lot of corporations use this. It's been put into a lot of fields, including into a lot of hiring fields, to understand how do people work together and how do they interact under stress and pressure. So this is something, if you guys take a little bit of time and learn about, you can apply to not just real estate and those relationships or the other side, that co-op agent, but you can apply it to also how you handle the other individuals in your lives, your friends or your family. How do they communicate? What are the things they need when a conversation or when you're expressing something? And what do you need? And allowing that to be identified. Okay. Any other questions, you guys? I think I went through it a little quicker than I expected than any of my trial runs. But I do want to make sure that if anyone has any questions, we answer those. And then I'm going to have email to Tracy and Doug a little mini kind of, it's not as detailed as any of the major tests out there, but I'm going to send out a little bit of the personality kind of quiz. It's a little mini 8-question things to give you guys an idea of what kind of type you are. What's your behavior style?
Essie, Sarah made an interesting observation. She's noticed over the years doing these assessments and trainings that my dominant trait tends to change every so often. As we grow and mature, we maybe lose one dominant trait and sort of adapt a more dominant trait. The other interesting one was Dave commented that it was interesting to note that Essie is a DI and speaks quickly and upbeat, and Doug is more of an SC and speaks more slowly and softly. And knowing your DISC, you can pick up clues on how to help convert your lead to a client.
And true, because I went through this a little faster than I had practiced for. So definitely, I do speak a little more quickly when talking to individuals. And that's something that I have to work on when talking with someone who is an S or C type personality. A lot of different trainings we hear about mimicking who's on the other side of your conversation in any form of sales. They've always talked about that kind of mimic, where you're going to kind of match their pattern or their cadence. And if we're going off me alone, I talk traditionally very quickly. It's very animated. And not all my clients are like that. There are definitely times I have to actually think about it and bring it down. So if Doug and I were touring a home, I'd have to bring down my conversation, speak a little more slowly, not because he doesn't understand, but because he needs a little more sense of security and reassurance, as well as more information. And with that information, needs more time to think through all of it, process those details, because he's not working just off an emotion, he's working off of data. Unlike myself, who walks in and I am the girl who picks, and I'm like, oh my God, I love it. It's amazing. Yay, works. And so those different styles, we can work well together, but a lot of it's based off of knowing the other and being accommodating. Disc personalities are those kind of styles, and they're not really personalities. personalities are a lot harder to change. But as I think Sarah had stated, the DISC behavior styles are adaptable. Our experiences are the things we do as we grow and mature. Those things will change some of the behaviors and how you handle work and how you handle stress. And real estate's stressful, no matter who you are, agent or not. We're dealing with people's financials, their dreams, their investments. Our goals are to make sure that we take care of clients, but that is also stress for everyone involved at times. And the goal for all of us is to minimize it. So learning how to communicate is one of the best ways to help with that.
Esse, interesting story. I had a close friend who was much more DI. I was much more SC. And I commented that if you were trying to sell the same home to each of us, you'd tell us totally different things. You would tell me about the solid construction and the copper piping and, you know, all. You'd have charts and graphs and the lowest price per square foot of any home in the neighborhood. And you would tell him why it was the best house to have parties and have your friends over and all this. And my joke was he didn't care if the pipes were made out of paper mache. And I wanted to know, does this have copper piping? What kind of plumbing and all this? And he was different, and what was important to him was different.
And a lot of times you'll find those things out in some of the first conversations. I had a conversation with a client just last week. And one of the great things about it is, again, my personality is very DI and ID, depending on the moment. And I was very chatty. I was trying to get to know him a little bit. It was one of our first conversations. And then he made the statement that he goes, I don't have a lot of time for fluff. Bring me the information that you know, and then we'll just go from there. And I realized he's a very D personality. He needs it very cut and dry. These are the best options. This is why. He'll make a decision. And that's how I have had to approach him. Even in our generalized conversations, we don't have a lot of how are you? How was the weekend? What's going on? It's hope you're having a great day. Here's the information you requested, and then I'll talk with you soon, which is very different from my natural persona, which is to jibber jab, as you all are seeing too. I'm very social by nature. So it depends on who you're talking to how things are handled. I have another client who's looking at land who's very C-type oriented, similar to you, Doug. So he wants all the information. He wants the HOA documents. He wants the soil test. He wants to know about the area. He wants the aerials. He wants to know if there's a survey, all of the different pieces, including zoning and all those things, even prior to potentially making that offer, because he wants to not make a decision based off of his emotions. His wife loves the area, but he wants to make a decision based off of fact. So those kind of things play a difference into how you broach your clients and what makes an important thing to them, what's important to them. Go ahead, Stephanie.
So one thing I say, a lot of people pray for the courage to speak. I pray for the wisdom to shut up, right? I need to pray more. But I realized I could offend a D personality pretty easy with my I personality, but I never considered I could offend an I personality responding to them in that down tone. So I appreciate that you brought that out. I knew I had to dial it back, but you're right. Some people, if you dial it back, that could be just as offensive as coming in full force with a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm. And so part of that is learning those things, learning how to identify them. When you have a client who says they don't want to make a decision the very first time they go out, that client probably is not your D or your I personality. They're probably closer to that S or the C. And one of the ways to kind of figure that out is based on what they need and what they're asking you for. Your C personality is going to ask you for information. Your S personality is probably going to ask more about the process, ask more and comment more about wanting to get other people's opinions. They're more people focused, but they're also people focused is only specifically about those they truly care about in a lot of ways. They're not going to ask Joe Schmo on the street, but they're probably going to call their family and those that they trust most to kind of discuss those things for that reassurance. And as an agent, when we go through this process, that's part of our jobs. And for someone who may be a D or an I personality who doesn't automatically need that reassurance, you have to step in that role or kind of step back and say, how do I reassure them without being, kind of over the top? And I use myself as an example quite often. I have to slow down and kind of make sure that they understand. Even though I'm ready to leave the house, like we've walked through it, we've been here 20 minutes, I'm totally over the showing. I'm ready to go. Let's go see the next one. They want the time to stand there. And they need to feel good about it and need to feel that reassurance that this could be something they could stay in long term. This could be the right one. So those kind of things make a difference in how we communicate with clients. And same even with agents. Those kind of things make a difference with how you communicate on the other side. And unlike our personalities, which are so ingrained in us, our behaviors can be adaptable. These are things that you can learn to communicate better.
Yeah, see, that's a great lead into our next question from the chat. The Tony Robbins disc used to provide a natural and an adaptive comparison. Do you know if it still does? It also used to be combined with a values index report. But can you speak to the natural and adaptive comparison on the disc profile?
So, Tony Robbins, yes. I don't know if they still push out the adaptive versus the natural, but I know what you're talking about. Our natural personalities is how we handle kind of things in a non stressful environment. So, how we communicate on our day to day, how we handle walking in when things are not so much under a pressure moment. Your adaptive personality, though, they talk about, and what they're speaking on is kind of what happens when you're put under in that kind of pressure cooker. When that stress kind of goes up, what happens to you? In a very natural way, I'm very much a DI or an ID. I'm very fairly even there in a lot of ways in the natural aspects. I'm very social. I like to chat. But if we're under pressure and things become more of a stressful, and the Tony Robbins defines that as more an adaptive style, most of my eye disappears or drops quite low, and I'm very results driven, very let's get it done, get to the next, when under that stressful moment. And those kind of things, knowing how you also respond to stress actually plays into how you handle clients, how and also how they'll handle things. So those kind of things, identifying that natural response is great. Just recognize that those things can flip a little or move a little when you're dealing with that kind of stressful triggers and moments. And Tony Robbins did have at one point a value section. I don't know if it's still included in their profile assessment, but they do have a free assessment online. Tony Robbins does. And
That's
it's a
fantastic.
great one.
Thank you, Essie.
You're welcome. It's a great one.
Couple other of the just comments were great presentation, that your disc profile is very likely to evolve over time. Nice work, Essie. So just sharing some of the feedback that we've had in the chat window.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it.
We are closing in on the hour. We've got another 5 minutes or so if anyone has any other questions. If not, we'll think about drawing it to a close. Before we do, I'll remind you that we record our Business Builder Speaker Series, the Zoom presentation. We clean it up, make it professional, and then share it in the resource tab on our website. Give us typically about a week or so to get the video edited and posted, but once we do, you'll have the ability to go back and review the video again for anything that you want to see, or to share the video with anyone who didn't participate that might benefit from the material we covered today. And you'd be welcome to peruse the library of other videos that we've developed over time and find some other great topics that'll be of interest to you. If there are any other questions, as they say, speak now or forever hold your peace. And if not, I'll go ahead and wrap it up and draw it to a close.
Thanks, Essie.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Doug.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Warren.
Warren.
Great job, guys.
Thanks, Melissa. Essie, thanks again. It was a wonderful presentation, and from the feedback, I think everyone on our session today enjoyed it. Personally, I want to thank you for being our guest speaker and joining us on the program today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Doug, for letting me share and letting me come and join your business builders. You're absolutely fantastic. We truly rely on your office and appreciate all the things that you do.
Each of the profiles has its own strengths, but in some ways, having a closing attorney who is SC it has its benefits. Each of them do, but I'm proud of the benefits I bring to the closing table with the detail oriented and the steady and calming influence, because sometimes that's really needed at the closing table. And I want to thank not only Essie for being our guest speaker today on the series, I want to thank each of you for joining us today, for your time and participation. One of my favorite quotes that I use is from Kenny Rogers and his song, The Gambler, and that is that I hope you found an ace that you can keep. So I trust that you've taken some value out of our time together today. Thanks for joining us. I want to encourage you to take what we've learned today and apply it to your day-to-day real estate business and help you grow your business. Stay in touch and let us know at Schaefer's and Dean what we can do to help you as well. Thanks again. Have a great week with your real estate, and we'll look forward to catching you next month, Wednesday, April 15th, 10 a.m. Presentation on fair housing for real estate agents. Thanks again.